things cannot get worse than the situation that we are in with the Islamic Republic, right? So even though there are going to be some cost associated with, like, sometimes there are people who will get something that they don't deserve it, right? But because we're in the middle of a war, this is more about survival than fairness, right? So if you want to be too careful about making sure nothing bad happens to nobody that doesn't deserve it, then you're putting yourself at such a disadvantage against a monster that doesn't have any of these standards. They doesn't, like, you're not going to be able to fight. Like, oh my god, let's be careful not to do anything wrong. At
No,
the end
that's
of the
not my
day, if
standard.
you're,
To be clear, that's
I'm
not
not
my
saying
standard. Okay.
I'm not saying that's your stand.
But
I'm
I know
trying
other
to,
people are not as intelligent as you.
yeah, yeah, I know. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to clarify that at the end of the day, if I have to do the things that we need to do to make the IRGC and Basij and UN Tsunami back off, if basically to make them on the run instead of them on the attack mode, if some people do something that there's going to have some people something happening to them that they don't deserve it, compared to just allowing these regime forces be able to do what they want without any fear of pushback. I think you have to do a cost benefit analysis, and again, basically trying to tie your hands to be like, oh guys, let's be moral and let's make sure that nothing bad happens to nobody. I think there's a restriction that doesn't make any sense to the Iranians. I think more than 50,000 of them died in just a couple of hours. We don't judge Israel for when they, in the 12-day war, 1,000 Iranians died, and so many of them were civilians. We don't judge Israel for, like, why did he kill civilians in Iran? So I think if we apply that standard to Israel, we should also apply the same standard to the Iranian people. Given that they're fighting against such an evil monster, we have to allow them to go a bit radical here, because you need to be a little bit radical. You need to be radical against such a monster.
I mean, let me be clear. Madness is rational in times of madness. Like,
Right.
I don't have any delusions. I'm just thinking about maybe I'm like overcomplicating things. I don't know. Like
No, I hear.
how that's going to play, like how that's going to be spun. Do people have a stomach to stand by that and justify that? These are serious considerations thinking about.
Well, the good thing, this is also emphasizes how important Prince Reza Pahlavi is, because the
Mhm.
only power that we have that could correct anything that goes too far in one direction is Prince Reza Pahlavi. There's no other force in Iran that could work as a correcting mechanism that people actually believe in and listen to. So this is also shows how important it is for us to have Prince Reza Pahlavi.
Yeah. But you like know where I don't know, you understand me, right, Armin?
Yeah, I've seen those videos that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
So yeah.
it's on a different level. So,
Yeah, it just,
I mean,
I mean,
granted, that was in the, like, the on the 8th and the ninth, when things were really popping off. So, I that's a completely different
and
circumstance,
and
but
to be completely transparent, when I was watching them, I was actually happy to see them.
sure.
Okay, and like, because of the level of anger I have towards these people, and I haven't lost a single family member. So imagine the people who lost family members watching those videos.
Okay. Next, we have Shauna.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the UN Watch was talking about China, Russia, North Korea, and Pakistan defending the Iranians slaughtering their people. Because I, I'm not super like. I mean, of course, China and Russia, North Korea are going to do this, but Pakistan is an American ally on paper. I know they're Muslims, but I just don't know if that's. I'm not concerned about them getting involved because they can't do shit. But is that concern for like global stuff? And then the other thing too, and maybe Gary would know this, maybe he doesn't, but the Azerbaijanis, you said that their areas were, I can't remember the word you used, porous. Is that also possible? Would they, do you have any idea how they feel about the, I just know Azerbaijan has gotten a lot more kind of liberal more recently, or have been trying to at least secularize as much as they can. So I don't know if you know anything, if they would, or if anybody knows anything about how they might respond. They're also an American ally, I believe, but I could be wrong. Again, it's a tiny country, not a lot of firepower, if any, but an important location nevertheless. Oh, and then also I wanted to point out, I heard everything both you and Susie said, Armin, but I would also like to point out that there is, and I'm not saying they shouldn't do anything. It's just that I also think there's probably going to be some vengeance and some excess bloodshed that's going to happen. And the reason I think that is because even in France, after World War II, after the Nazi occupation, there were women who had slept with Nazi soldiers so they could feed their kids, and they were punished for that. There was a lot of violence on a lot of random people that weren't necessarily traitors, they were just people that were stuck in the middle in a shitty situation, and a lot of those people were kind of punished regardless. There was a lot of extra violence that happened after that in, like, France and some of these other places, so I just
Yeah, I mean, given that, honestly, like, I think that we have such a big problem right now with the Islamic Republic that some people doing some bad things eventually at some point is
Right,
not
right.
really that high as a list of our concerns compared to what the monster that
I'm not
we're
saying it
dealing
is.
with.
Nazis
Yeah,
still needed to
I
be
know, I know.
removed from France. I just really wanna emphasize the I guess I just wanna say my piece about
I'm
that,
pretty
like, I
sure
think
in every revolution that happened. So that's why
yeah.
I'm not going to be too judgmental against the Iranian people, given that this seems to
I'm
be a
not gonna be
natural
any
part of
more judgmental
it.
than I would be towards,
Yeah.
like, Western you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yep.
not yeah. That was, like, a 4-year occupation and that happened, so I just I'm expecting
Right.
humans to human.
Right. By the way, Azerbaijan is also the country, not the province, is also an ally of Israel. So I'm pretty sure they're also an ally of. It's a it's the only Shia Muslim country that is an ally of Israel. A big ally of
They
Israel.
They also are the first Muslim country to invite Mormon missionaries in. That's why I know that they're getting more liberal and secularizing, because that's a sign if they're inviting Christian missionaries from a Christian minority, like, that's not a small thing. Mormons traditionally do not go into Muslim countries because Muslims can get killed if they convert, and so you ought to protect human life. So, the fact that
But I
they
didn't know if any of these countries are right now are important in any way when it comes to the military aspect, unless like Gary has some information regarding
I just think they're
Pakistan or
important for location, not military location.
Azerbaijan is important from a location perspective because if they want to basically attack from the northwest, that airspace, Azerbaijan will probably make it available to Israeli planes or anyone else. But that's the only thing that I could see
Yeah, I only
Azerbaijan
said
would be.
location. They don't have fire I don't think they're important for military, literally just location.
Right. Pakistan, I'm not sure Pakistan would be relevant because if they're coming from the east, they will be coming from the southeast, from the Oman Sea and the Persian Gulf areas. I don't see them
Um,
coming from the east. Yeah.
I'm not worried about them. Okay, so here's the thing, they're also not very good fighters, so even if they do come in, I'm not overly concerned about
Yeah.
them.
The thing regarding the Pakistan side that you need to worry about is not the Pakistan government itself, it's the Baluchi separatists that might get some ideas right now because the regime might be falling. So that's what you need to be looking out
What are the
for that.
Baluchi separatists?
Oh, the Baluchi separate. Well, they're they're
Real quick,
sep-
yeah.
they're they're separatists that are Baluchi. So they're basically Baluchi people are part of the Iranian on the Iranian side, they're Baluchi people on the Pakistani side, and they want their own country, Baluchistan,
So are they like
right? So
Kurds? Not
yeah,
They're a
not
but
like
they're
different
more.
Kurds,
ethnic
but
group.
like
they're-
that's what I mean by like Kurds, sorry.
yes, yes,
Okay,
Both
yeah.
alright.
They
on both
don't.
sides of the Iranian-Pakistan border, and within Pakistan, the Baluchi insurgency is one of the longest running current insurgencies going on. It's been an insurgency for a very long time on the Pakistan side of the border
Why?
because 'cause they're not treated very well by the Pakistani government.
Yeah,
And it's a very poor area, and it's also water shortages makes things unstable over there as well.
okay, I got you. I feel like every week I find out about a new ethnicity in the Middle East. So I'm like, it's like Pokemon. You got to catch them all. Like I don't even know. So okay, cool. Yeah. Well, my mostly concern again, it's not a huge concern. I just wanted some thoughts because UN Watch reported on it, and while I do think it's more to keep Pakistan closer to the West, A, for their own good, because maybe some progress can happen. I don't have a lot of high hopes, but 10% optimism I want to hold on to. The other factor is
Pakistan is a failed state that you need to keep supporting to keep it running, because if it falls apart, there is basically a whole bunch of American weaponry and also
yeah, it's
atomic
gonna
weapons that will basically fall into the hands of a whole bunch of different Islamic radical groups. So America has no choice but to continue to support the Pakistan army, because that's the only thing that is stopping all of that weaponry, including the nuclear weapons,
yeah,
to fall in the hands of a whole
you're
bunch of.
paying off the barbarians. I no, I get it. Yeah.
Well, you're paying off the Pakistan military to hold off the barbarians to get to the nuclear weapons and a whole bunch of other weapons.
Gary.
Gary,
Okay.
by the way.
Anyway, those are all
Yeah,
my that's my whole those are all three of my points. So or questions
yeah.
or whatever.
And Armin, can I just respond to Shauna a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, please do.
So, Shauna, you're bringing up a very, very good point. So, not coincidentally, NATO leadership was just in Azerbaijan as well as in Armenia, which are right next to each other to the west of the Caspian Sea. And what goes on is that Azerbaijan, as was rightly pointed out, is a very strong American ally, but also a very strong ally of Israel. Next to it is Armenia, which there's a we're just celebrating is probably the wrong word. About 100 years ago was the mass slaughter of about 9 million Armenians. That they're still not being recognized. So there are a lot of sensitivities there. But it's not coincidental that the leaders of NATO went to both Armenia and Azerbaijan about a week and a half ago. The reason there is since the fall of the Soviet Union and the consolidation of certain nations, Armenia, as well as Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, southern Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan, cooperate with NATO in terms of training for self defense, meaning defense of the country, not individual citizenry. So they're very much aligned with a non jihadist agenda. They're very much in favor of keeping their nations very stable and doing commerce within the region. And it is happening in actuality. So there's sometimes these various pieces that don't necessarily seem to fit together. But NATO has just spent a lot of time in Azerbaijan and Armenia to prepare them for what may be coming in Iran, is my suspicion. I was not a part of any of those discussions. But the issue is that Armenians look over the border into Iran and Azerbaijanis look over the border into Iran, and they see friends and relatives and their families. And these are people that they care about. And Azerbaijan, yes, does not have a huge military, nor does Armenia, but they do have the ability to help secure their brethren in those provinces in northwestern Iran to make sure nothing bad happens to them.
Okay.
So I hope that gives a little bit more color here. You're not looking for Azerbaijani armies to start fighting against the Iranians or the Armenians to start doing so. You don't have to encourage the Kurds. They'll do whatever's necessary because they don't take guff from anybody. But there's a
Yeah.
lot going on, and there's a lot of family and friendships that go on that neutralize northwestern Iran preferentially.
Okay. Yeah, I just was curious. I have yeah, I was surprised when I found out when I did like a little bit of a not a deep dive, but a peripheral glance. Azerbaijan seems to be making, given their challenges, making some headway, and
Yeah.
you know, so
And one last thing about Baluchistan, Armin, you may or may not be aware of it, but yesterday was the end of the about a week and a half to 2 week standoff between the military and the police of Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iran against this wild band of Baluchis that just were killing as many Iranian paramilitary forces, Pakistani paramilitary forces, and Afghani. I mean, the Baluchis are very, very restive at this point, and there are actually contacts between the U.S. government and the Baluchis going on right now.
Okay, well, that's not good. I mean, first of all, the Baluchi separatists, not the Baluchis, right?
I can't say for sure who they're talking to, but I will say this, that there
So,
are direct contacts that are going on because there's a
so
possibility that Shahar Bey may become a part of the U.S. Navy in the coming weeks.
okay, so in Pakistan or in Iran?
In Iran. So you have
Well, okay,
Baluchistan, and then you have Konarak, and Konarak is on that bay, Chahar
yeah.
Bar Bay.
So
Yeah.
I just want to like obviously we Iranians are really sensitive about not mixing like any of our ethnic groups with the separatists, right? So I want to also make sure like Baluchis or Iranian Baluchis are not the same as saying the separatist Baluchi groups in Iran. We always want to insist on the separatist group being a minority of any ethnic group that we mention in Iran. And are you suggesting that the United States will be working with the separatist groups, armed
No.
separatist groups? No. Okay, good. Because that
Mm-mm.
would not be good.
No.
Okay. That's
Briefly
all right.
before we move on, Cat Lady has something to add to this.
Uh-oh.
All right.
I heard some rumors. I hope it's wrong that the U.S. is in contact with Azaris, Kurds, and Baluchis. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just rumors. It is worrying. I hope they do it in the right way, at least. But one point about Armenia. The recognition is not the issue. Armenian governments have done all the wrong choices, whatever they could do them about Israel. And actually, the Armenian churches, even some of them, are very hostile to Israel. So it's more complicated. Let's say it this way.
Cat Lady, you could not be more correct. And just as the rabbinate in Israel is trying to take land from the Armenian church in Jerusalem and a few other areas, there are a lot of complicated issues here, but I think we should probably stick with the revolution in Iran right now.
Right. So yeah, let's move on.
If everyone is interested after Armin leaves, that could be a great topic for us to do a little deep dive on, as long as Armin wouldn't have too much FOMO.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay.
So we have a question in the chat. Armin, you have spent probably the most time here looking at the IPP. Does it talk about the security and border situation starting day one?
Yeah, it does talk about basically bringing stability and the steps that we need to take. It doesn't go into, when it comes to safety and security, it doesn't go into a lot of details when it comes to controlling the armed forces. And I had the main editor of the IPP on my show in Persian, Saeed Qasim-Nejad, which is also his the main advisor of Prince Reza Pahlavi. And I asked them like, why is it like the most important part is the military, like for us to know how we're going to stabilize the situation from a military perspective on day one. Why does this plan not go into a lot of detail with regards to that? And on the show, he said, like, well, because that part shouldn't be public. Like, you don't want to show the Islamic Republic exactly all the plans that we're having to like all, because we're talking about the first 100 days, the booklet that we've been studying a lot, that's the first 100 days, right? So what comes when it comes to securing our borders after the first 100 days, that's a completely different topic. And actually a lot of it is going to also be after the transitional period and determined by the elected government. But obviously the first 100 days, what they're going to do to try to secure the country from a military perspective, those plans cannot be shared publicly because a lot of it involves the already communications that Prince Reza Pahlavi's team is having with people from the Artesh or other people from inside Iran. So that is the part that they cannot discuss yet. But I haven't studied the other parts of the IPP with regards to their border security, especially on the eastern borders. But I do know for a fact that that is the most important area when it comes to border security, because a lot of when we're talking about border integrity of Iran, what threatens Iran from our eastern borders is a lot more significant than our western borders, because our east, we are basically the countries on our eastern borders, they're kind of semi-failed states. So we can't really rely on them as allies to basically hold their borders. Like, at least on the western borders, there's some sort of government that also wants to, I don't know, have some border security. On the east, we're dealing with Pakistan and Afghanistan. They have no control over their borders, right? So it's completely chaotic. It's also water shortage situation is a lot worse on the eastern borders. The Islamic Republic has spent all of its military budget focusing on destroying Israel at some point. So, like, spending all of that money on ballistic missiles, your ballistic missiles are not going to do anything on border security. All of the enrichment uranium, all of the ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, they're useless when it comes to border security. We need to be reinvesting in a army that is mainly focused on securing our eastern borders, which means that we're going to, like, that is not going to be the same military assets designed to bomb Tel Aviv. So we need to be investing in a lot of assets from scratch. That's going to take a long time to secure those borders. We might be needing some help, by the way, I think, in that regards. If I could add something to the transitional plan, I would be asking Americans to come into Iran and just have some American bases for a short while before we get everything in order. Like, I know a lot of Iranians would get, don't want that, but I honestly think that's necessary.
You guys need
But
like
go.
a wall between you and Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Did you make that suggestion to the author of the plan? Did you speak to him at all about that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have been talking about that in many of our shows. I mean, not on the show, because them saying yes or no to it will not look good, right? If they say yes, they're like, you want American boots on the ground. If you say no, like, oh, so you're anti-American as the rest of them. Like, so it's better not to ask that question from the Pahlavi's team on the show. But Gary has some opinions on this.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're going to get your wish because the uranium mines in Baluchistan and in southern Khorasan provinces are going to be guarded by U.S. CENTCOM
Yeah.
for as long as they need to be decommissioned.
Hmm. Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I hope so. I don't know how that's going to be perceived. I don't know how Americans will tolerate that. Like, do you think American voters would tolerate American? Like, oh my God, you said no boots on the ground, and this is boots on the ground.
So the good news is that there's that place in New York on the East River. It's got a blue emblem. It's called the United Nations. You've heard of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the International Atomic Energy Agency will be the guys that really will control those sites. And that will make it more palatable, but the firepower will be American to make sure
Hmm.
no looters come in.
How is America going to sell this to American voters and taxpayers?
Oh, in terms of decommissioning all the Iranian nuclear sites, that won't be a tough sell in the United States.
No, regarding having American soldiers there.
If they're there to decommission the nuclear sites, that's all the cover that Americans would need. Americans don't want any Iranian nuclear weapons or nuclear payloads being deliverable. Full stop. It's one of the
So
few things Democrats and Republicans agree on.
Okay, all right. So regarding the IPP and border security, let me give you the few things that they have mentioned about border security. By the way, Gary, thank you. That is, I mean, I hope you're right. I just don't see it yet, but I hope you're right. Like that would be like really good to see it. But let me just go back to that because I was bringing this up. I have all of this in a summarized somewhere to for when people ask me. So the transitional government will immediately reactivate the border guard command and deploy the regular army Artesh to secure all borders against instability and infiltration. Regional cooperation. So it establishes joint border commissions and 24/7 operation rooms with neighboring countries to monitor threats and prevent cross-border movement of armed groups. Again, I don't see how you do that with the Taliban, but okay. The, so the plan shifts to a modern border security program using advanced surveillance technologies like drones and AI rather than just manpower. That's also there. And zero tolerance for separatism. The new military is mandated to treat any ethnic or political efforts to partition the country as a national security threat. So that's in there. If that was not in there, a lot of Iranians would basically give up on the transitional government. This is the highest priority. Like this is the holiest thing for Iranians. This is the most the border integrity is like sacred for Iranians, more important than anything else. I would say secularism, keeping Islam out of government, comes second to preserving Iran's border security. That's how important it is. Border
That's a good point
integrity.
to answer that question then. Ending it with that. Next, we have Hila.
Yay.
Sorry. Yay. Okay, first of all, the UN is a joke. Who listen to these shit fuckers? Whatever they say, think the opposite. They're lying all over. And I need my glasses to see what I wrote down. Okay. Oh, and about Iran, I will start from the end and then I go to the bottom. About Iran army, we will not leave an army. If there will be bombing, there's nothing left, okay? No storage, no nothing, no zero, zero, zero. That's another thing, I think. And about the plan, obviously the important stuff are secret. It's all supposed to be secret. It's supposed to be in the fog, all foggy. Nobody's supposed to know what the next move is because then they will prepare to the next move. So it's kind of stupid to put everything out there for the public. I mean, the public has a right to know, but the public don't want to know everything. Okay, about what I wanted to say, it's the first thing we talked about, you and Gary, about what it's gonna be like. So I think it's gonna be somewhere between Nazi Germany and how we treated the Nazis, and like Sinwar and the tunnels in Gaza. In the end, some random soldier that just drafted in the army like 6 months before, he killed them by mistake. He did a mistake. In the end, he did a mistake. All the massive machinery and units didn't catch him. A random guy catch him because he made a mistake. So that's the end of like big threats. And about Eichmann, I wanted to say for Jews it was very important to hunt them down, but then when we caught them, we had a moral issue about how to deal with them. It was a big deal in Israel, the philosophic discussion about what to do and how. They chose a, they had a rally who will guard them, and it's supposed to be like Yemenite Jews, not Ashkenazi Jews, so nobody can rage. They were extremely afraid somebody will kill him, poison him. The guy that was watching him, he used to taste his food every day to check that they didn't poison him. They were so afraid of revenge. They guard him for like 8 months during the trial, and then they scatter his ash in the sea, in out of the territory, the international water or whatever. So no site will be, so people not come to see the site. like worshippers. So I think if it was that complicated for us, for this one guy to do it, and it was like a whole massive event, I think this is kind of this what you will have to handle it, but in mass amount of people. I don't believe in blood on the hand. I don't think. I mean, I'm sorry. If you're a clerk and you just wrote the number, we don't count it. I mean, and yeah, I think the common person cannot kill even the most villain person. But I mean, the people that were involved, and this is what Israel was very afraid of, are going to do extreme stuff for what they saw, for what they've been done to, and for what they lost. And nobody's judging them. They just needed to protect Eichmann until they decided to kill him. It sounds stupid, but I mean, it was a reality. And I think it's a history lesson that Iranians can learn from. That's it.
Okay, next is Jason.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I want to go back to something that was said earlier about the blanket response of forgiveness. Knowing the doctrine of Islam, how can that be offered? Does that make sense?
So, to see if I understand you, you're saying that after the Islamic Republic falls, after the revolution, how could the Iranian people offer, like, how could Prince Reza Pahlavi talk about giving a blanket forgiveness to people from the regime, from among the people from the regime that don't have blood on their hands because of Islam,
Correct.
because of their, okay. So what do you mean? I still don't understand, because how
Okay.
would them being Islamic mean that we cannot give them a blanket forgiveness?
So my views on Islam, on Muslims, is I don't trust anything that comes from Islam.
Right.
With the amount of killing that's going on
Mhm.
and offering a blanket response, how can you trust that these people are going to push away what they were already doing and come to the right side?
Well, I mean, anybody who has been killing the Iranian people would not be forgiven and would be brought to justice. We're specifically talking about anybody that hasn't been involved in killing Iranians, right? And the reason why Prince Reza Pahlavi says that is because we've learned from the experience in Iraq that with the de-Baathification after the fall of Saddam, that basically trying to remove anybody that was involved in the government will create so much chaos and destabilization that it will create a power vacuum. We saw that happening in Iraq, right? So many people who are working in the regime, the people who are basically doing the filing, the people who are basically cleaning, I don't know, the office, like the people who are, just a programmer, the accountant, you can't get rid of all of those people. Even if they're working for the Islamic Republic, you just have to forgive them and let them continue to do the work that they were doing, because the whole thing will fall apart. When it comes to trusting Islam and Muslims, I think it's important for us to separate Islam and Muslims from each other. Islam is a vile, disgusting, barbaric religion, and it should never be trusted. It's like, I agree with that. But Muslims, there are many Muslims who are good people who wouldn't hurt a single person in their entire life. Like, just because Islam is vile, I agree with that. But many Muslims are working, like, there's two programmings. There's Islamic programming, and then there is your human programming. And I think many Muslims are running under human programming more than they're running under Islamic programming. So you cannot just completely dismiss somebody just because they're a Muslim as somebody that cannot be trusted,
Okay.
right?
So my sister, she's Muslim and she's not Shia, she's Sunni. They follow the same book. And this is a general question. They follow the same book. So how can you trust one and not the other if they follow the same teachings?
Because most Muslims don't follow the Quran. Most Muslims
Okay.
say they follow the Quran, but they don't really. Most Muslims have never read the Quran. Most Muslims, I know the Quran more than most Muslims do. Most Muslims
As
have
do
this.
I.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, like even the ones who have read the Quran, they don't understand the Quran. Like if most Muslims, for example, many, I mean, I don't know if it's most or not, but the Muslims I know, they never want to beat their wife. Like they would never want to beat their wife. But the Quran clearly commands that you should be beating your wife, right? It clearly commands that, but they don't want to do that. So that's why I say most Muslims are better than Islam. Most
Okay.
Muslims are better than Islam, right? And they don't understand it. Even if they do understand, if somebody tried to explain it to them, they would leave it. Or if it is too hard for them to give up on their Muslim identity, they will somehow convince themselves that it doesn't say the thing that you're telling them that it says.
Okay. That was very helpful, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate that. If you have more Islamic questions, please ask me because I've been debating against Islam, I've been fighting Islam. By the way, I also think that one of the best ways to fight Islam is to befriend Muslims, right? Because if you try to be anti-Muslim, that actually feeds into Islam. The more Muslims feel isolated, the more Muslims feel attacked, the more that they basically they're going to be in their own groups communicating with each other. You need to, if you want to convince people out of Islam, you need to bring their guards down, right? So to bring their guards down, you need to befriend them and talk to them like your fellow human beings. So befriending Muslim is actually the best way to fight Islam.
Okay. By the way, I'm not anti-Muslim. It was just, I wanted somebody's opinion as to how they view it, and you gave me that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay,
Okay.
next is Hassan.
Hassan. Oh, which Hassan?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, my favorite Hassan. Okay, there you go.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Armin. So I just wanted to say, Shauna was making a point earlier about the Pakistanis being an impediment to the toppling of the Iranian regime. The sense that I get here in Pakistan is that the Pakistani state will not be in any ways an impediment to the toppling of Iranian regime. The problem is that because of how prominent anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism in the Pakistani society, how pervasive those two problems are, the Pakistani state doesn't want to be seen to be helping Israelis or the Americans like kinetically. That's kind of like how it is. So in areas where there are votes in the UN, for example, Pakistan would vote, in a way that would make it appear that okay, we're against this, but they're basically just trying to contain a reaction in the Pakistani society where people will say that okay, you are helping the Americans, you're helping the Israelis topple the regime. And also the other concern, like Armin and Mr. Gary mentioned about the Baloch separatism. These are important problems that the Pakistani state is quite worried about. And since Gary said that there will be some UN-backed troops on the ground taking care of border integrity, actually Pakistan would more or less, at least the sense I get is that Pakistan will be, there for help. Actually, will help whatever forces are present on the ground to help them ensure that there are no spillovers. Thank you very much.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Oh, but Gary, you have some questions yourself? Your opinions?
Yeah, Hassan, thanks for that. And two points about Pakistan. So what you mentioned about the UN, and it's not border integrity in Iran, it is the nuclear sites integrity. So the
Okay.
UN would not be enforcing, and the United States would not be enforcing Iranian border security. That would be strictly an Iranian matter. It's
Okay,
just the
that's
nuke
good.
sites. I do want to point out one thing that some people may have missed. So, at the time that there was the exchange going on between Israel and Iran prior to the June 14th, 15th attacks directly on Iran, the government of Pakistan offered to give Iran a nuclear weapon that they could then launch at Israel. And they made that
Oh, really?
pronouncement. They made that pronouncement publicly.
Wait, when
Personally,
was this?
That was, remember
Really?
when Israel and Iran were having the exchange before the June 14th, 15th direct bombing in Iran?
I thought that was not real news. I thought that the
Oh,
Islamic Republic made that up.
no,
No?
no,
The
no.
one where Israel hit some Iranian guy in Lebanon or something, and then Iran launched a bunch of rockets, and then Israel took out their defenses, right?
Wait, you're saying Pakistan offered nuclear weapons to the Islamic Republic? Am I hearing this right? I think I'm
You
mishearing
are
this.
hearing that correctly. That was confirmed.
Gary, I'm pretty sure you have good source on what you're saying, and I'm not at all doubting it. But if that were true, I don't think that the way the relationships are between the Pakistani state these days and the US will be where they are. They would be very shaky, and you just wouldn't have let that kind of thing slide. At least that's what my, thing is. But I'm pretty sure what you're saying, you have better sources than me, or you're better connected.
Why do you think I'm always
Probably not
bringing up
then.
Pakistan and my fear of Pakistan having nukes? I'm like,
Right.
Like, isn't like Gary? Isn't that wouldn't that be like a international emergency? That if that something like that was offered, was that like a serious offer, or was there just some unimportant person from the government? Like, wouldn't that be like okay, like that would be the end of relation? Like, I don't understand how this was
Exactly.
not a
Yeah.
bigger deal.
because everyone's too stupid to realize how bad the Islamic Republic gang nukes are.
No, they're
Yeah.
not stupid. They have the best intelligence in the world. But like, let me see what.
Actually, America is pretty concerned about these things. Nuclear proliferation is exactly why they're doing this whole thing
So
in the first
so
place.
let's hear
Yeah.
what Gary has to say. How come this did not become a bigger deal after this? So Gary.
Shortly thereafter, there was a rapprochement between the United States and the government of Pakistan, where there was a much closer and warmer public persona on the face of that relationship. That was duly noted within the inner circles within the United States. When Pakistan said that, that would be really, that. So I'll just give you my background just a little bit. I'm just a simple country organ transplant specialist, and I was part of a group that provided information to the U.S. Department of Defense after 9/11, when the concern was not about planes flying into buildings, it was planes dropping nuclear waste as dirty bombs over U.S. cities in follow-up. That was something that was classified back then, but that's not classified any longer. That's the big concern that there is from Homeland Security and U.S. Department of Defense and intelligence, and that is partly what underlies the USA Patriot Act, is the concern of nuclear events on U.S. soil. When it comes to Pakistan, there are many concerns, as you've all rightly pointed out. The thought of a nuclear detonation on any country's soil in the world is the primary mission of the U.S. Department of Energy and also a very important mission for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. There is no more important mission from many of their perspectives to preventing a nuclear detonation on U.S. soil with a nuclear weapon that's brought in or with radioactive materials being brought in. This is something that we're very, very well defended against. So with all of that as background, whenever something is said, like when MBS a few weeks ago said, we don't have to have a nuclear development program, we can just buy one from Pakistan. He said that approximately 3 weeks after Pakistan offered the Islamic Republic of Iran one nuclear weapon to attack Israel with. These are not isolated events, and these are things that do not go unnoticed by U.S. government circles, both at the State Department, Department of Homeland Security, or Department of Energy. So I can't speak to why people are not aware of that, but those two events, when Crown Prince MBS said he could just buy one from Pakistan, and Pakistan offering to give one to Iran to use against Israel, these are not viewed as separate events. They're viewed as reasons to send more American diplomats and other people with persuasive powers to Pakistan to create a new public relationship.
Gary, can you answer, please, sir? How on earth did they even get to go nuclear? I mean, we're worried about Iran, which we should be, but were they just flying under the radar? Like, did everybody just let this happen?
No, the Americans
Israel.
gave them their nuclear capacity. We did.
Wait, Israel wanted to bomb them at some point, but they were
Who
stopped.
who are we
I don't-
talking about now?
The Pakistanis.
We
Oh,
Like
had
I
a
said,
good
No,
everyone
that's
idea.
is
not correct.
no,
stupid.
that's not
Pakistan stole
correct,
that nuclear
Susanna.
technology from
No.
India, who developed it organically.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
organic.
Pakistan gained nuclear weapons and nuclear technology directly from the Chinese, the Russians, and the final pieces were from North Korea, not from anything from the United States.
And is it true that Israel at some point wanted to blow it up, and they were getting
Yes.
ready to go blow it up?
I'm
They
not
were
familiar with that.
But I'm sorry, my question is who let it happen? Because the US did not let countries go nuclear if they don't want to. So who was in charge specifically?
Well, North Korea, I believe, has a lot of nuclear weapons, and nobody let them have it happen. It happened in the midst of frozen diplomacy between the United States, Russia, and China. This is not the United States doesn't control everybody's behavior on the planet of Earth. When North Korea became a nuclear power, President Clinton and his predecessor and the person who came after him were very much read into the situation, but frozen diplomacy prevented definitive intervention. When it came to Pakistan, now you're talking about back in the early 1970s. I think it was around 70 or 72, somewhere in there. Somebody can correct me though, but this was a very, very different situation.
It was after that. It was well after that because in 1971 we had a war with India, and at that point in time we were not nuclear.
When was it, Hassan? I apologize.
I don't exact. I think it was we detonated a nuclear bomb. I think in the washer, it would be 1990s, sometime around 1990s. Yep.
Oh, really? It was that late? Wow. How
Yep.
time flies.
So let me read this for just a second. So it says in the early 1980s, Israel planned a preemptive airstrike on Pakistan's nuclear research facility to prevent the country from developing nuclear weapons. Israel approached India to collaborate on this mission, specifically requesting permission to use Indian airspaces for refueling. However, the plan was aborted because the Indian government refused to cooperate, fearing that such a strike would trigger a full-scale war or nuclear retaliation from Pakistan. Additionally, the US exerted diplomatic pressure to stop the operation. Susie is indirectly correct because Americans stopped the Israelis. They didn't give them the nuclear weapon, but they did stop the Israelis from stopping the Pakistanis from removing the nuclear weapons. So in that,
I went to look up what I was talking about. I was misremembering details about some
Yeah.
crazy backstabbing that happened with the Pakistani ISI.
but you are accidentally, indirectly correct. So they didn't give them the
Win is the
nuclear
win.
thing. But
Can,
yeah,
can
And
I say
Susanna,
something
just
here?
so you know,
I'm sorry.
the ISI's official emblem is the back of somebody with a knife going into it. So you're right on. You're spot on.
Oh, dude. I mean, what they did in the
wait, really?
Bombay hotel attack and all that shit. We had a US asset turn against us. It's a whole thing. Let me stop.
Yeah.
Okay, we have
Sorry.
to put
Can
Susie is mostly right on the sleeve of the Armin and Goldie shirt.
Hey, by the way, Gary, I just wanted to mention this. Can you explain this to me? Because what I'm reading, it says there's no evidence Pakistan offered a finished nuclear weapon to the Islamic Republic. However, Pakistan, specifically the AQ Khan network, did sell the Islamic Republic the critical technology, blueprints, and equipment centrifuge necessary to build one.
That
There
was
are
very
also
far back. That was far
that
back.
was a very
Sorry.
far back. So it
Yes.
says, I don't know. Maybe I'm asking Gemini. Gemini is saying there's no evidence that Pakistan offered a finished nuclear weapon to. Maybe you have
I,
information that is not public, Gary.
I would never share information that's not public.
Okay. Well, can you as if you send that to me, because that's a big deal. Like if you could send that to me, that would be like, or post it in the community tab. All right. All right.
I'll do that. I'll do
Before
that.
I know we've been staying here for a long time, but BT, I'm just gonna ask one question from Hassan because I'm really glad he's here, and then I ask him, and then we'll move on. Sorry, BT. So Hassan, I have this thing with when it comes to discussing Pakistan, and I don't know how to manage this, and I wanted your advice, right? So I keep talking about Pakistan as a shithole, like because of Islam, poverty, and inbreeding. But I also don't want to be insulting to all of our heroes in Pakistan, the secular activists, the ex Muslims, the atheists, and all the people in Pakistan with the proper value on our side. So like, how do I manage this? I mean, is this as somebody, like, what do you think? Because I think like the Pakistan is a failed state. The government at least is a failed state in my opinion, or becoming one at least.
Armin, how
And I
can I
also,
shit on your country but respectfully?
yeah,
Yeah,
how could I shit on your how could I well, not, I mean, should I, how could I shit on at least at the government, at the military, and the Islamization, and the fact
right,
that
right.
Pakistan has been hit with the three curses of Islam, poverty, and inbreeding, without losing the amazing people from Pakistan who are on the right side.
So, Armin, really, all I can say here is that I think you know better than anyone else, I think, over here, how, when Islam takes over a country, it can kind of like numb the people to, they don't really know what the things they're endorsing, just out of, a religious upbringing and things like that. They don't quite know that. You just mentioned how Muslims are better than Islam, and you're actually kind of spot on with that. Most Muslims don't even know what's written in the Quran. These are important points, and I would really appeal again to your sense of empathy. Pakistanis are a diverse people, 240 million people. And
Yeah.
yes, there is a breakdown in terms of how the economy is doing, and just a general society-wide, like there is it's an impoverished country. These things are all true, and a lot of it is to be blamed down to the fact that Islam has more or less, like, the people here, they have been made into anti-Semites and anti-Americanism. Also, I'm just going to say something. Part of the reason why Pakistan has such high levels of anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism is, I don't mean to say it like Iranians are responsible for it, but a lot of it came,
Yep.
after from
Yep.
Iran itself. And I don't mean to, say in the sense that you guys are to
No.
blame for that. No, this is a regional problem. If you really look at it, it is essentially a regional problem. This kind of thing you'll see even in Turkey. Turkey has a lot of anti-Semitism, right? So, these are values that this is part of the reason why I'm cheering on the Iranian cause, because, once you people have set an example of, how a society moves forward when it's tied down by, all these factors, like especially Islam, and, just this top-down authoritarianism. Once you guys break that, it's going to set an example for the region to move forward. I say that be empathetic and just generally approach this matter with
But
somewhat nuance.
sorry, finish, and then because I have a problem with trying to
Yeah,
do
sure,
that.
sure. You can go ahead. Go ahead. You can say what you have to
So,
say.
so my issue is, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is that when it comes to Iran, it seems like the Iranian people have reached a level of understanding regarding the correct values, and that I don't see that in Pakistan or in Afghanistan. Like, I think, like, in, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Iran, the problem is the regime, the solution are the people. But in Pakistan, unlike people like yourself, the problem comes from a huge portion of the people. Is that correct, or is that a miss?
And that's actually a
Okay.
matter of fact. But I would say this one thing. I have lived my whole life in this country. I'm currently here. I do not plan to leave the country. One of the things that I am seeing here is a very positive change in society. And I've seen it happen in the last 10 years or so. There are improvements, especially as people aren't as poor as they used to be. And that's had a huge impact on, some of the, more regressive thoughts. And right now, I think the most extreme people that inhabit Pakistan inhabit areas that border Afghanistan. Afghanistan is currently exporting essentially a lot of militant Islam into Pakistan. The regions that border Pakistan have this, language similarities with them. So a lot of ideas travel, fast, and they kind of stay contained over there in that region. So in mainland Pakistan, especially in Punjab and big urban centers, they're actually moving forward. and I see positive trends. So you're right about this. It's a bottom-up pressure in terms of like how society kind of wants and likes, Islamic system of governance. So they kind of like, endorse it. Even though they would, if it's imposed of them, they would probably rebel. Pakistanis, for example, almost always reject religious parties. If you look at the Pakistani election results, religious parties almost always contest elections, but they are almost always not given enough seats in the parliament. In fact, very little seats, if any, to form any kind of meaningful force in the parliament of Pakistan. So what I'm trying to say here is that there is reason to be hopeful. And even I'm doing whatever little I can to talk to people here, get a sense of what they think. And I've seen improvements, is all I'm going to say right
Well,
now.
stay safe.
And oh yeah, of course. I take this approach of not being very harsh, or I just try and be empathetic because I've been there. I was a Muslim one, so I've been there. I know how it can be. I try and have conversations as thoughtfully as I can, as empathetically as I can. But I see positive trends. That's all I'm gonna say here. And we need people like you and other people who can approach this topic with some empathy, because you can almost never convert, or you can never really insult people out of bad ideas. You kind of have to talk it out of them with respect. And if you cannot be at least respectful, you have to be like, at least make your point with empathy. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably what
Well,
I'm gonna say.
thank you
Nice
for that
nice
answer.
chat. Nice
Yeah,
chat.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
After the recording, after Armin leaves and the recording is done, but maybe before he leaves, I have a question, and I would love for Gary and Hassan to chime in if either of you feel compelled, just FYI. So next we have Francesco.
Betty, if you want, you can ask it now before I. Okay. There has been a lot of things since I raised my hand. First of all, I think it is in the US interest to back up Pakistan because, like, having a the strategy of the US, for what I read it, is to balance the power of India with Pakistan and the power of China with India. And also there was, I don't know, financing the Mujahideen, anti-communist. So there was like an history there. And now with the war in Afghanistan, so Pakistan has been helpful logistically and supported a bit the USA in this fight. But it seems strange to me, and I would like to ask Gary this. It looks like a bit of a fish market for nukes when it comes to negotiation, like should I give you a nuke? Why don't Pakistan just proceed with that and also buy nuke? Like the Saudis asking that they can buy it. For me, these public statements are more like an indication for negotiation tactics. So they want something from the United States, so they threaten to give nukes away. But I want to hear your thoughts on Gary.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the IRGC was trying to keep me on mute. It's a great question that you pose. There are people who have killed people with their own bare hands, and there are people who have never done that. Then, when you look at the world, there are those countries that have nuclear weapons and those that don't have nuclear weapons. Fortunately, there are only a few countries that actually have nuclear weapons. I will tell you from personal experience about something called the Radiation Effects Research Foundation. It was created in the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the people who survived, and there were many, many survivors after both attacks, the people that survived were followed longitudinally until death because of what the US Army did in conjunction with the Red Cross and other groups. Nuclear weapons and their use is not world ending. It is world altering, but it's not world ending. And weapons that size, like the 10 to 15 kilotons that you saw in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those are very tiny in comparison to what exists out there. Whenever a country such as Pakistan or India, when they're facing off each other at borders and they both have comparable size nuclear arsenals, there's a certain soberness there and a certain amount of respect that you pay to them just because they have those weapons. I don't know quite how to characterize it other than that. Am I answering part of your question. I may have forgotten the last
the thing
part.
is, why don't they just act and they threaten to act or announce giving weapons or buying them? Like, why don't they just act instead of making it public?
Well, so they do have enough fissile material in the Islamic Republic of Iran. They have enough fissile material for 12 of them the size of Hiroshima and Nagasaki weapons. Whether or not they have them weaponized, nobody can say for sure right now. But beyond that, if you're seeing something in print, in media, about somebody offering to give somebody a nuclear weapon, you don't know for sure if that is a counterintelligence operation being run by one intelligence service or another against another country. You can't tell that. But what I can tell you is that countries with nuclear weapons discuss transferring that information and even their materiel to other countries not infrequently. That is a fact of life.
Can I just add?
And if I just one last point on that, and there have been times where it's come close to coming to fruition, and people have died because of those mistakes that they were offering.
Wait, Francisco, you're saying you're surprised that the Islamic Republic doesn't already have nuclear weapons?
That somebody didn't smuggle them yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Islamic Republic has gotten close to having nuclear weapons multiple times, which was stopped every single time by Israelis because they're watching everything. The only reason why the Islamic Republic is not a nuclear power right now is because of Israel. They would have.
But if Pakistan threatens to give it away, or so that's like a lot of potential for just smuggling.
But again, I think like U.S. intelligence and Israeli intelligence is observing that all the time and stopping. Like, I mean, this is such an important threat that they would not let that happen. I don't think they would let that happen.
Yeah, that's great.
Just as a note of maybe a little bit of relief, any of you take a look at those pictures of Mars that come back from NASA and ESA? They're pretty remarkable, aren't they? Yeah, so the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was outfitted in conjunction between ESA and NASA, but mostly European Space Agency. But the Royal Astronomy Academy or Astronomical Academy in the UK, there are not many things that the UK does right anymore. But one thing they do right is in terms of intelligence and the ability to detect things from space. So they created a capability where, not only can the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter go down to about 6 centimeters per pixel, but they can also detect very, very low levels of radiation on the surface of Mars. And by extension, they can do the same on Earth. So you remember a few months ago when, I guess it was June, when there were those 30 or 35 Earth movers worth of big trucks backing up to all the major Iranian nuclear facilities? Every single one of those trucks was followed, and they knew exactly how much radiation was being emitted by each one of those trucks. It's very hard to hide radiation, especially when you're an amateur trying to transport it.
Okay, guys, I have only like 12 minutes. I want to make sure I hear the rest of the people. Can you do it in 30 seconds?
Yes, I will try. So I want to say that it's not up to the responsibility for killing should not be put on the Iranian people or their revenge, because when it comes to stats and stereotypes, we can generalize people, but when it comes to crimes, we cannot. There are just individual rights and individual responsibility. And even if we want to do that, you cannot there is out of your control. So there is no way of enforcing that if you don't control the territory. So during the transition, it's impossible to. I mean, you can mitigate it if you give, I don't know, a message from Pahlavi to stop, to do not take revenge on your own ends. But there is nothing that prevents people for killing others. And also, it doesn't make sense for UN, and because you can get into sanctions, and they can't wait to get to blame the new government for atrocity that will be committed, I think. And also, is justice will not be served. A lot of people will be killed. So it's, I think, forgiveness can be a good tactic to get the moral upper hand, because once you control the country, you've won. And also, during after the Second World War, Japan did the worst atrocity that even, I mean, I think it was even worse than what the Nazi did with their concentration camps. Unit 731, and the crimes were not completely persecuted. Most of the people, basically, they did the worst atrocities in history, I would say, got free. And when it comes to Islam, there should be freedom of religion.
The best way to end Islam is to have freedom of religion for Islam, because if you ban Islam, that's the best thing you could do for making Islam grow faster. As Islam grows on being the victim. So you have to let them say spread their bullshit and just meet them in the battlefield of ideas and crush them while they're freely able to express themselves. I think you have to basically make it a fair battle and defeat them in a fair battle. If you tie their hands, you actually never have defeated them. You have to demonstrate that you have defeated them in a fair battlefield. All right, who's next?
Next, we have Richard. And to complete the list, we'll have Daniel Dome, and then we have a question from the chat.
Thanks, Armin. I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about the Afghan border, really the eastern borders in general, but this is something I didn't see specifically in the Iran Prosperity Project plan. Given that the Islamic Republic's already imported tons of Afghan people to weaponize against the Iranian people, I think they deported some of them, accusing them of being Mossad agents, but basically there's a large population of Afghans right now displaced inside of Iran. And given that that's been a major problem historically, that border, for drug smuggling, human trafficking, other problems like that, what do you see happening with that border once the transitional government's been established?
Yeah, that is
And
going
the
to
people
be
that
a
are already
challenge.
in Iran?
That is going to be a big. Both of those are going to be a big challenge and also very touchy subjects, right?
Build a wall.
Because you can't build a wall that big. That's a huge border. Like that's like a very long border. I don't see a wall being built there. Yeah, especially when it comes to the Afghans inside of Iran. There's going to be a lot of leftist and human rights advocacy groups that are going to be very sensitive about moving, like trying to remove a lot of these people from inside Iran back to Afghanistan. There's going to be, so I think that's going to be a major source of tension, because that's going to be priority number one for a lot of Iranians, for a lot of patriotic Iranians, to try to get these people out. And it's also going to be a huge ammunition for all of the leftists, and they're like, oh my god, look at this, they're in power and now they want to, they're racist, anti-Afghan Persians. We told you this is going to be Persian supremacy, Persian tyranny against the minorities. We told you, Pahlavi, this is what Pahlavi will bring. This is like anti-Afghan racism. Not like, these people are poor, they have nowhere to go, war-torn country, and we should be welcoming to these people. And I mean, to be honest, like there are many. So they're going to point out that so many Afghan people who are law-abiding citizens in Iran, who have been building, who've been part of a lot of constructions, and like they came here and they built so many of our buildings, and now you're being so ungrateful. And again, this is going to be an issue. Like, well, no, we're not going to be. This is an issue of mass migration. All obviously, the ones who have come here legally and they have been working, and they have been like even some of the good ones have to go, because there's just the numbers doesn't make any sense, right? Because it's mass migration, they haven't been documented, they came here without any proper vetting.
But a lot of
So
them
this is
come and
going
are denied documentation
on purpose, denied
on
documentation
purpose
on
because they're
purpose. Yes.
racist against them, like, and discriminated
Yeah,
against them and have been there for generations.
but then they're going to be like, well, that you're sending them back, you're sending them to a worse situation now. So this is going to be a major source of political. So we're going to have political parties that are basically. But you know what? This is a good problem to have. Okay. You know what? This is going to be a major source of tension. But I'd rather become a country that we have multiple parties fighting over mass migration, Like this is a normal, this is like having the same type of discussion that people are having in United States and fighting about. Okay, I think this might seem like chaotic to you guys for us to have this problem, but for me this is like, oh, we're going to have problems that normal countries have rather than an actual holocaust on our people, right? Like because given this is a debate in America right now as well, like we were gonna like the fact that this is going to be a source of tension, to me this sounds like normal. Like if you see, like, how you see your father and mother father and mother fighting, and you feel like this is traumatic and a huge source of tension. I bet you, like if they drop a bomb on your house and your mom dies and your father becomes handicapped, then if you remember the times that they're fighting, that becomes nostalgic. Like, can we have those days when mom and dad are fighting? That was the good old days where we were a normal family, right? So I think this is the difference between, like, a country that is dealing with, like, mom just died and father just became handicapped, compared to a family where mom and dad are just fighting. So you know what, actually I want us to get to a situation where those are the problems that we have to deal with, because it's nothing compared to the problems that we're dealing with right now. But yeah, I could see that becoming a source of tension sometime in the future for sure. And securing our eastern borders is going to be very challenging, very difficult. It's a really big border. It's really like our neighbors are failed states. One of them is like Pakistan, the other one is like Taliban. Honestly, the fact is that dealing with Taliban is going to be easier than dealing with Pakistan, because even though Taliban is like completely Islamic and backwards, at least they have control over the territory. Like Pakistan's government doesn't even have control over all of these Islamic terrorist groups. I mean, I know Taliban is dealing with ISIS Khorasan, ISIS K. They have issues with that, but that is nothing compared to the endless number of terrorist groups that Pakistan has to deal with in their borders. So we're dealing with states that can't even control their own terrorist groups on their side. We're dealing with separatist groups. We're dealing with huge levels of poverty. We're dealing with water shortages. We're dealing with sandstorms, right? And there's going to be so much. These are not problems that you could just fix right away, just because now you have a secular democracy. So yeah, the answer is that, yeah, this is going to be challenging. I don't have, sorry, I don't have a better answer. Richard, did I even answer your question? I just basically told you that it's going to be challenging.
No, you did. I was curious because I think it's something that Prince Reza would have wanted to include in the Iran Prosperity Project as sort of a preemptive.
I'm
Um,
glad he didn't. I'm glad he didn't, because all of the attacks that are going to come at us in the future would have now, like all of the leftists trying to demonize Prince Reza Pahlavi, that would give them so much ammunition to be like, because if you say like, oh, we're going to kick out all of the Afghans that came here, like the mass migration that came from Afghanistan to Iran, like imagine if we had in the Iran Prosperity Project that, oh yeah, they need to go home. So that would be the leftists, all the anti-Pahlavi people will be waving that around everywhere. Like, look at these people; they are racist. Before, like we told you that these people are fascist. We told you that these people are Persian supremacists, right? Even like you're gonna be like, this is not racism. This is mass migration. We cannot accept mass migration from Afghanistan. But if that was in there, that would be a huge ammunition to all anti-Pahlavis and all people who are anti-patriotic and think that tolerance means just welcoming everybody in at the same time.
well, no,
Yeah.
I was curious personally about what they were going to do with the Afghan people, but in terms of Prince Reza, I was curious more why he didn't include parts in the Iran Prosperity Project about dealing with the problems that have come from that border, because he has given speeches about Iran being a
Well,
partner in international drug trafficking and money laundering.
it mentioned something about border security. It has sections about border security.
I might
So,
have missed it, but
so
I think that's been a real problem for drugs and human trafficking. That goes back,
it does
a long
mention
time.
the units that they're going to have. It mentions the technology that they're going to be, drone technology that they're going to be using for border security. It mentions working with the governments or our neighbors. It touches on them.
Okay. I mean, historically, have they been able to deal better with opium addiction that's come from that drug smuggling? I know it was a major problem historically.
Again, I don't know what the specific plans are going to be, but I know this is why we need to get rid of the Islamic Republic fast, right? Because even though this is going to be challenging, at least it's going to be addressed. Right now, the Islamic Republic's military's focus is on world domination, destroying Israel, and expanding a Shia imperial imamates in the Middle East. So, as challenging as that's going to be to secure our eastern border, at least we're going to use our resources of our military to do that instead of now where it's all going to go towards supporting Hamas, Hezbollah.
No, that should be priority one. This is more of a post-revolution down the road question.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If we don't have anything else to do with our military other than defending our borders, all that oil and gas money probably is going to make a difference to bring some border security, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
But of course,
we are at 2:00. We've got two
Oh.
more for on the record. So if we could wrap this question up, please, and then we can hopefully
Okay.
get quickly.
Okay. Richard?
Okay.
I'll
Yeah, no,
go?
I was going to say it's one of the sad realities of actually wealth and prosperity is you actually become a market, a destination market for drug smuggling. And that's certainly been the case in America and other wealthy countries. So that's something to keep in mind.
True. That's a good point.
Okay, Daniel Dome.
I love PT.
I don't want to take the time.
He says just move on to the next person. That's what.
Okay, so we've got a question from the chat. What religion is Reza Pahlavi? Don't care, just thought of it as you were talking.
So he's officially a Muslim. He doesn't live like a Muslim. He doesn't Muslim. So he's what I call a nominal Muslim, right? So I have two categories of Muslims that I want you guys to be familiar with: nominal Muslims and minimalist Muslims, right? So we have conservative Muslims, we have minimalist Muslims, and nominal Muslim. So let me actually tell you what the minimalist Muslim is. A minimalist Muslim is a Muslim who does the minimum that Islam requires, the absolute minimum. So they pray, they fast during Ramadan, they don't eat pork, and they don't drink alcohol. And if they're women, they wear a hijab, right? And it's not like sometimes, but that's about it, right? And other than that, they don't think about Islam, they don't talk about Islam, they live their lives just like everyone else, but they do the minimum. It's like when they pray, it's like brushing their teeth. Once it's over, it's done. They don't think about it. This is a minimalist Muslim. A nominal Muslim doesn't do even that. A nominal Muslim is somebody who, if you ask them if they're a Muslim, they say yes, but their lives is indistinguishable from a life of somebody who's not a Muslim. That's a nominal Muslim. So these are people who are only Muslim by name, and they do absolutely nothing when it comes to resembling the behavior of a Muslim. So Prince Reza Pahlavi is a nominal Muslim, meaning basically he is only Muslim by name. He doesn't do anything that resembles Islamic behavior.